Chapter 28. They decided to follow the rail. Compared to digging their way through the underground, it was easy. All the work had been done for them. They, they only had to retrieve Johnny from his hiding place, hop through the hatch, and walk. It bothered Bobbie that they weren't sure they were going in the right direction. They stopped periodically to listen, straining their ears and peering into the dark. But they neither heard nor saw any sign of Flip and Hatchet, or their undead captives. But Ben had consulted his map, which showed the way back to Plaintown, and they had decided to walk in the other direction away from Bobby's home. Otherwise, it felt too much like they were retracing their steps. "We should have checked beneath Savannahton," Bobbie said. "I bet this trail extends all the way there too, and maybe even to the woodland mansion," said Ben. "These people are thorough." As they walked, Bobbie lost track of time completely. With unchanging scenery and no sun or no moon to go by, time became vague and elastic. She got hungry every so often, and they would stop to eat. Sometimes Johnny would utter a rattling growl from behind her. Otherwise, one moment bled seamlessly and endlessly into the next. Bobbie began rummaging through her inventory. She pulled out the strange idol they'd taken from the evoker. She waved it over Johnny's head, poked him with it. Nothing happened, except that Johnny became aggravated and swiped at the thing. She put the idol away and took out her nautilus shell. She ran her hands over its smooth surface, letting the swirls of the shell draw her in. The effect was almost hypnotic. With a jolt, Bobbie realized that something was missing from her inventory. The emeralds she left them behind when they'd been digging for gold. She'd put them in a chest and never gone back for them. Her heart sank at the realization. It was hopeless to think they could find their way back to that area, especially after the river had gotten them so turned around. But Ben was counting on those emeralds. The promised payment was the only reason he'd agreed to help Bobbie in the first place. They'd grown closer on the quest. Ben even seemed to like Johnny a little bit, sometimes. But would he stick around if he knew he wouldn't get paid? Would he still want to help them? Or would Bobbie be left to fend for herself? She decided she couldn't take the risk. She didn't dare tell him the truth. "What is it?" Ben asked. And only then did Bobbie realize she stopped walking. "Oh, she said, "it's just the shell. It's so pretty." "Can I see it for a second?" he asked. "Sure," she said, and she handed it to him. "But be careful with it. I know you don't think it was worth the expense, but hush." "Shh, shush," he said. "Listen." And he put the shell up to his ear. A faint sound rose from the shell. It sounded almost like Ben's shush, but softer, and it rose and fell in an endless cycle. Bobbie found it calming. "What is that?" Bobbie asked. Ben shrugged, bringing the shell to his own ear. "People say it's the sound of an ocean trapped inside the shell by a powerful witch." He turned the shell to her and resumed walking. "I don't think that's true, but oceans are eerily quiet, so maybe." "You've seen one? An ocean?" As she fell into step behind him, Bobbie took care to stow the shell away safely. It felt even more precious to her now. I was hoping to catch a glimpse of one through the spyglass when we were up on the mountain. I've only ever seen one on maps, though, and it looked so big and so blue, like the sky came down to the ground and settled in for a nap. She turned to Ben. You've seen one. But you've seen one. What was it like? Well, big, said Ben. And blue. You've got the right idea. Really. Bobbie rolled her eyes. You've got to do better than that. We've been walking down this tunnel for what seems like years, and I'm starting to wonder if I'm a zombie. Okay, said Ben. The truth is, yeah, an ocean is impressive, but when you see it at a distance, they're as vast as anything. The skill of them. He shook his head, but at the same time, that's missing but the point entirely. Bobbie didn't understand. What do you mean? An ocean isn't the featureless blue plain you see on a map. That's just the surface. The real magic is underneath. He smiled. There are fish in colors you could barely imagine, and the coral is even more colorful. There are dolphins and squids and guardians that shoot laser beams. I'm slightly less fond of I'm slightly less fond of those guys, but they do look cool. He laughed. This one time I heard rumors about an island somewhere out on the water, an island where everything was made out of mushrooms. The trees were giant mushrooms, the ground was some kind of squishy fungus. Even the cows were made of mushrooms. How does that work? Bobbie asked, skeptical. I don't know, said Ben. Logan and I decided we had to see it for ourselves. We built a couple of rowboats and went out searching for the island. We ended up befriending this dolphin. We named it Squeaklebeak, and Squeaklebeak showed us the way to a shipwreck. We never found the mushroom island, if it even exists, but that was a really great adventure. I knew it, said Bobbie. The ocean sounds amazing. It is amazing. The whole world is amazing, really, once you peek beneath the surface. He shook his head. I guess that's what the maps can show you. I guess so. All right, I guess so, said Bobbie. All right, Ben said, shoving her shoulders slightly with his own. It's your turn. Regale me with an adventure. Me? Bobbie scoffed. I don't have any stories. Oh, come on. There was there, there was that one about the chicken and the fox. It was a rabbit. Right, the fox and the rabbit. That was a great story. Bobbie sighed. I never went anywhere, never did anything. Behind them, Johnny groaned mournfully. Ben laughed. I think he thinks you're being too hard on yourself. Yeah, said Bobbie, and then more firmly, yeah, I never traveled, but only far enough to get lumber or sugar cane. But I was a but I was a part of a community. She turned to Ben. Most people in my village had a job, one specific thing they were good at, and they'd do that thing every day. But I did a little bit of everything. She smiled. I helped whoever needed help, learned enough about every job so that I could be of use to anyone, and I made sure the village never went low on supplies. Johnny gurgled, and I still found time to play with Johnny, which usually meant trying to find where he had wandered off to. I'm jealous, said Ben. Ha, said Bobbie. Yeah, right. The big time adventurer jealous of the part time babysitter? Tell me another one. No, I'm serious, said Ben. I never had roots. Never had anything to go back to after an adventure. His eyes fell to the ground. I think that's why I was so happy when Logan took me under his wing. He told me I had a lot to learn, and he was willing to teach me. He didn't ask for anything in return, just first dibs on any resources I found. Bobbie frowned. I mean, that's not nothing. We had bases, sometimes, when there was an area that we wanted to explore in depth. One time we even set up a temporary headquarters in an abandoned temple we found. Ben's eyes lit up at the memory, but only for a moment. We never stay in one place for long, though. Never really had a home. Total freedom, said Bobbie. I guess I can see how it would leave a person unmoored. But stay in one place your whole life and you miss out on a lot. Ben put in. Maybe the answer is somewhere between the extremes. Bobbie thought on that as silence settled over them and they could continue their endless march. She'd been so focused on curing her brother that she hadn't given any thought to what would come afterward. She had assumed that they would return home to their house, their village, but was it still home? What was a home without any people in it? She was so caught up in her thoughts that she didn't notice the strange sound at their backs. Listen, whispered Ben, and he came to a dead stop. Do you hear that? Bobbie stopped, and now she did hear it. It was a rushing sound, and the creak of old wheels, and then a voice shouted, "Make way! Clear the tracks!" Bobbie reacted with only seconds to spare. She leaped back, pulling Johnny away from the rail. Ben did the same, moving in the opposite direction. A pair of minecarts sped between them, moving so fast that Bobbie had time to gather only a few impressions. There was a person in the first minecart, a boy in a leather helm. He looked vaguely apologetic and a little queasy. Following in his wake, a second minecart contained Bobbie. Thought they were eggs of some kind, but they didn't look like chicken eggs. Johnny grumbled with complaint at the sudden jolting. "Sorry, buddy," she said, "but we almost got run over by—" Whoa! By what was that? Ben shook his head, his eyes wide with bewilderment. "Were those turtle eggs?" he asked. Johnny growled again, and he pulled on his lead hard. "Johnny, calm down," Bobbie said. "It's fine." "What's got into him?" asked Ben. "He seems really agitated." "Yeah," said Bobbie. "I thought he was mad at me, but it's like he's trying to get my attention." A growl rose in Johnny's throat, and it seemed to reverberate all along the tunnel, building upon itself, until Bobbie felt she might be bowled over by the unearthly wail that passed over her. Ben shuddered. "Creepy," he said, but then he smiled mischievously. "I want to try." He cupped his hands around his mouth, planted his feet, and cried, "Echo!" Another immense animalistic growl reverberated from down the tunnel. Ben's eyes went wide. That wasn't an echo. "Ben," said Bobbie, "I think something else is coming this way." She heard shuffling footfalls, rasping grunts, and plaintive groans. "A lot of something else," she said. She knew what was coming their way, knew it in her gut, but she was still surprised by the skill of it. A wave of zombies stepped into the torchlight, a stampede. The far end of the tunnel was choked with the undead. The zombies had seen them. Their legs churned faster, their arms opened to receive them. Their mouths yawned open, slavering with hunger. Bobbie wanted to run, but she stood rooted to the spot. There was nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. This time, there would be no escape from the zombie horde. Chapter 29. Fight or flight? Asked Ben. What? Asked Bobbie. Ben could see that she was reeling from the sight of the horde as it bore down on them. Do we fight them? He asked, and he turned his new iron sword so it gleamed in the torchlight. Or do we try to run? We can't fight them, said Bobbie, but Johnny had other ideas. As Ben watched, Bobbie's brother tugged against her grip. The leash slipped right through her grasp, and though Ben leaped for it as it snaked across the ground, the boy zombie was too fast. He was loose and lunging toward the horde. Johnny waded into the throng of zombies, slashing at several of the mobs before climbing on top of one. From his perch on top of the zombie's shoulders, Johnny had a perfect opportunity to bash his foe over and over again, while the beleaguered zombie tried and failed to reach Johnny with its teeth. He's doing a good job, actually, said Ben. He outnumbered 20-1. He's outnumbered 20-1, said Bobbie, and she drew her sword. Whatever hesitation she felt before it had evaporated in the face of Johnny's peril. She flung herself forward, slashing out at the nearest zombie, clearly intent on hacking her way to Johnny's side. For the record, my vote was going to be for flight, said Ben. Not that anybody asked me. With a long, suffering sigh, Ben joined the fray. He sidled up beside Bobbie, but stayed on her left, giving her plenty of room to maneuver with her sword. There was a rhythm to fighting zombies, and she seemed to have gotten the hang of it. The narrowness of the tunnel worked to their advantage. While the full herd pressed forward, no more than 5 zombies could reach them, as long as they held the line. But even 5 zombies outnumbered them. The troubles began in a moment of triumph. Bobbie felled one of the ghouls, reducing it to a scrap of rotten flesh. Ben felt a momentary thrill of victory. Maybe they had this after all. But the fallen zombie left an opening as another zombie rushed forward to fill it, it was able to slip past Bobbie's defenses. Seeing Bobbie take a hit threw Ben off, and he was on the receiving end of the horde's next successful hit. The rhythm faltered, and the horde began to slip past them. Once they were surrounded, there would be no hope of winning. So Ben did something desperate. What are you doing? Bobbie asked, noticing that he'd put his sword away. Ben, I can't defend us all. Just a few seconds, Ben said, and as his new armor soaked up the brunt of the horde's attacks, he was glad they'd taken that iron. Without it, he would have fallen by now. Even with it, this was risky. With his hands free, Ben was able to pull the carved pumpkin from his inventory. Straining across the biting, rending horde, he plunged the helmet over Johnny's head. Johnny howled in protest, but the pumpkin stayed on him as he bucked. Falling from the shoulders on which he was perched, he was newly vulnerable, and several zombies turned to attack him while he was prone. Bobbie screamed. "What were you thinking?" she asked him, swinging her sword for all she was worth. Two more zombies fell to her attacks. Ben didn't have time to breathe. Ben didn't have time or breathe or breath to explain himself. Every second counted now. He pulled a pickaxe from his inventory and, leaping up, he began to cut away at the dirt ceiling overhead. Within seconds, sunlight poured into the tunnel. Ben blinked, momentarily blinded, but he didn't let that stop him. He kept swinging his pickaxe, knocking more dirt away, cutting a line of light across the dock. The stench was almost overpowering as dozens of zombies caught fire simultaneously. "Grab him!" Ben directed, and as he pulled Bobbie clear of the fracas, she pulled Johnny backwards by his lead. Even with the comically large helmet, the zombie boy's bewilderment was obvious. He didn't resist Bobbie's tugging. Seamlessly, transfixed by the sudden light show, and she was able to attach his lead to a post without any problems. The zombies kept coming, but they had lost any real sense of minutes. As those in the front fell, engulfed in flame, others advanced at a staggered pace, impeded by the fallen horde mates, and catching fire as they entered the path of sunlight. With Johnny tied to his post, Ben and Bobbie were easily able to find the rhythm again, knocking back any ghoul who made it into their melee range. It was only a matter of stalling for time until the fire had done its work. As the last zombie crumbled to dark ash before them, Ben's knees gave out. Physically, he was fine. He could already feel his body healing itself, but whatever reserves of courage and willpower he drawn upon gave out once the danger was gone. It struck him all at once how close they'd all come to dying. Bobbie, by contrast, seemed totally energized by the entire ordeal. "Ben, that was amazing," she said, and she pumped her sword in the air. "You saved Johnny." It was it was nothing," Ben said, wheezing. "How did you know it was daytime?" she asked. "I totally lost track." "Yeah, about that," said Ben. "Lucky guess." That took time of the wind out of Bobbie's sails. "You mean you didn't know? But if not for the sunlight." She stared mutely at him, realizing just how close they come to disaster. "Very, very lucky guess," said Ben. Chapter 30. After the battle in the tunnel, Bobbie watched as Ben built a wall, cutting right across the railway. He knocked a few of the rails loose for good measure. "I would feel bad about messing with somebody's build," he explained, "but I'm more certain than ever that these people are up to no good." He paused to survey his work, slapping dirt off his hands, "and this will make it harder for them to sneak up on us again." Bobbie found it difficult to argue. She only hoped that the boy in the minecart wouldn't send hatchet and flip after them from the other direction. But the tunnel remained empty and quiet as they made their way ever forward. Bobbie found it impossible to remain on high alert for long. It was exhausting to strain her ears for signs of pursuit that might never come, and her mind kept coming back to Ben. He'd been brave in the fight against the zombies, but she'd come to expect that by now. And in a way, bravery was easy when you were in an incapable fight. But what had struck her was that he'd put his weapon down. He made himself vulnerable, had let himself be hurt, because He'd been determined to protect Johnny. The thought that Johnny might be collateral damage in the fight had been unacceptable to Ben. Bobbie hadn't realized how alone she felt until she suddenly realized she had a true ally in Ben. You were brave back there, she told him. Ben puffed out his chest. I was, wasn't I? And I ruined it. Why couldn't he just take a compliment without letting it go straight to his head? Bobbie had to keep his ego in check somehow, for both their sakes. Good thing it wasn't spiders, she said. You're really useless around spiders. What's that about? Ben deflated. Why does it have to be some Why does it have to be about something? Spiders are scary. I don't know, said Bobbie. I mean, they aren't cute, but they're really just animals. Although, she grinned, I guess you're afraid of llamas too. Ben scoffed. I am not afraid of llamas, he said. I don't like I don't like getting spat on. That's a very common and reasonable personality trait. Yeah, okay, said Bobbie, but that's sort of my point. You have a rational aversion to llamas. You can explain it with logic. She rubbed her chin. Zombies are scary because they're relentless. Endermen are scary because they're unpredictable. What makes a spider scary to you? Fear is irrational, though, Ben argued. It's the opposite. If anything, we should be afraid of pigs. Bobbie laughed. Pigs? What's so scary about pigs? Well, it's not so much pigs themselves. They're harmless enough, right? But do you know what happens when a pig is struck by lightning? Bobbie thought about it. Pork chops? She guessed. Not pork chops. Ben smiled darkly. Remind me to tell you all about it the next time we set up camp. It was a short time later when they saw the end of the tunnel. Let's be careful and quiet, Ben whispered. Bobbie nodded in agreement. Johnny growled. Maybe we can tie him up back here, Ben suggested. With Johnny secured to a post, Ben and Bobbie crept forward. They could see that the tunnel ended ahead, but the light beyond was dim, so they couldn't tell what it led to. The rail ended first. There was a minecart in position, ready to be sent down the tunnel with the flip of a switch. See the lever that looks like a dead torch? Ben pointed. That's a redstone torch, he whispered. That means this whole rail system is powered. Whoever did this knows their stuff. They might have a whole mining operation going. Suddenly, sounds rang out from the space beyond the tunnel's exit. It started as a single mournful groan, but then it grew into a nightmarish cacophony. Even Johnny appeared agitated. What was that? Bobbie hissed. Not another zombie horde? No, Ben whispered, and he crept forward to peer into the chamber beyond the tunnel. I think horde is underselling it. The tunnel opened out into a vast, cavernous space. Not a cave. There was nothing natural about this space. Its angles were too perfect, its lines too straight. It looked to Ben as if someone had carved a perfect cube out of the subterranean rock, and then had filled that cube with zombies. Hundreds of zombies, more than he could comfortably count. He inched back, away from the opening. I've never seen anything like that before, he whispered. Good, said Bobbie. I hate to get the impression that was normal. She shuddered. Is it possible it's just an accident? She asked. A spawner that's gone out of control, maybe? Ben shook his head. See the space? It looks constructed. He pointed. There are two more tunnels entrances like this one, and I'll bet those lead to rail tunnels too, and up above. Someone's built a little balcony so they can keep an eye on the mobs down below. So someone built this, Bobbie said, and they wanted to be full of zombies? But why? I'd like to learn that myself, said Ben, but we're not going that way. Come on, he hefted his pickaxe. Let's go upstairs.